Howdy, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Card Blitz. This is episode 41. I'm your host, Kelly Reed, joined by my special guest, Gregg Moeller. Gregg, how's it going?
It is going great, sir. Glad to make an appearance. I'm flattered by you offering to have me on.
Well, Gregg, it's a happy football Sunday. It looks like you have a football jersey on. I think you're ready for some football, aren't you?
Yes, I have my Earl Morrall jersey that was a Christmas gift from my wife, and I have my Green Bay Packers Hall of Fame cup with all the Hall of Famers on it, which we got at Canton some years ago. We were up there for Peyton Manning's induction, so we're good for today.
Man, well, sounds like you've got quite the history with this football thing. So I ran into you, I guess, virtually via Facebook. And
Yes,
it was on the what's it called? My old
my
vintage
old
cards.
yeah, my old football cards.
Yes, and you're. I guess it must have been like a Wonder Bread card, or perhaps it was a Buzz Nutter 1959 Topps card. That I started reading that article, and I like became enamored and enthralled with your writing and this process of you doing your card comments. And I'm happy that you're here, and I want to know like your collecting journey and how that got started, and the card comments articles, all that good stuff. So let's start with
Well,
the hobby journey.
like all adult card collectors, kind of started strong, put them away, came back. I started in the 70s with the classic white border tops cards. And once I started getting into high school, that kind of went off to the side. And my focus at the time was more baseball cards. And then I got married. The cards kind of stayed at my mom and dad's house. Luckily, I did not have the kind of mother who would throw them away when I was gone. And uh, what happened was, I see my focus was more in baseball, so I took great pains to put them all in binders. But my football cards were all in this old wooden box that I just had in my basement for years. Then one year, my daughters bought me a new binder, and I thought, well, I need to get my football cards put in finally. And then I was looking through my collection and realizing I had this awesome collection of classic cards that I just ignored. And as I got more back into the collecting, uh, I realized that there's two distinct cliques when it comes to card collecting. Your baseball card collectors, they tend to be rather snobbish, and I don't mean to be insulting, but in a way, they focus more on price, they focus more on rarities, um, condition. You see a lot of the weirder, like it just when I go to a card show on occasion, you rarely see someone that specializes in football cards. They'll bring out football cards almost like, well, I got baseball, but I got a box of football here too. And
Okay.
and it's just it and so I started gearing more towards the football cards because, well, I'm on two Facebook sites with cards. The baseball one I don't look at very much because I once found a 1966 Steve Carlton, and it wasn't in the greatest of shape. I paid like $8 for it, but I was very happy. I did not have a Carlton that old. And right away, people hammered me, why'd you spend so much money on a card in that shape?
You're like, it's my money, it's my card.
Yeah, it was like I was happy to buy it. And these people are, I never get that with the football card collectors. The
Hmm.
football card collectors, because football cards, the prices are far less with football cards. And B, um, you can get a Hall of Famer for relatively inexpensive prices
Hmm.
or for trades. And I've noticed that the obsessiveness of card valuators or card investors is a lot less with football than it is with baseball.
That's
And
interesting.
so it just comes across a lot more. Uh, I guess pleasant is a I have some wonderful conversations on Facebook with the football cards that I find and that other people find too.
Well, as I mentioned, when you introduced me to the Buzz Nutter card, of course, the sophomoric humor and stuff, but then the story of him comes out, and I'm like, it's fascinating. Do you feel like you get that with the on the baseball card side of things, where you find like an interesting card or a name, and you sit there and you say, delve into the history of that player or that card as well?
Well, talking about the essays, I guess I'll explain for people. I know you have links to some of my essays on your site, which is wonderful. I'm grateful for that. But my inspiration comes from a book that was published in 1973 called The Great American, reading my notes here, so I get it right
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
The
yeah.
Great American Baseball Card Flipping, Trading, and Bubblegum Book. It was by Brendan Boyd and Fred Harris. And it was right after a classic book about the Dodgers, The Boys of Summer, had been released. So there was baseball nostalgia. And these two gentlemen went through their old baseball card collections, and they didn't pick out the All Stars very much. They picked out, um, you know, they picked out, Choo Choo Coleman. They picked out Hector Lopez. They picked out just the run of the mill minor players that had a couple years in the majors. That was it. And they told funny stories about how the card looked, about the designs, quirks about their careers.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about that with the football cards. And so with things like Buzz Nutter, I mean, you can't, the name alone is amazing, Buzz Nutter. And it went all the way back to his childhood. That was they did, I think it was just like that was a name that just carried over from his childhood and went straight through his card days.
Right, right. Uh, I mean, so you find these kind of, well, let me ask you the process of you and your card comments articles. Do you go through that box, that old box, and is it just random? You just pull out a card and you're like, oh, this is an interesting character. Let me do my research and then let me get into the story, share it with the world, or how does your process work with that?
It just well, some of them it deals um, with weird stories or just weird backgrounds. I've got a couple cards here. I'll just kind of pull some out on occasion here, like this here. This is 1955 Charlie Trippy off of Bowman, and this sucker is beat up. You can
It's
see
it's
like
well loved,
that's the definition of rounded corners.
definitely.
That's a great definition. And on the back, it's beaten up. Someone put a blue ink mark on the back here, a blue ink check, and so this is not a valuable card to the collectors, the guys on the internet that scream about you know how many thousands they make.
Right.
They'll ignore this. To me, it's a perfect card because I got this from a dealer in Texas off of eBay, and I realized this had been in some kid's pocket probably for months on end, going to school and probably showing this off. They didn't have an NFL football team at the time. The Dallas Texans went bankrupt, and it was another 6 years before the AFL or the NFL came to Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
So this kid only knew about pro football from radio games or reading the magazines or newspapers. And I was just thinking, what an incredible journey this card has been on. And Charlie Trippy's I got because he's a Hall of Famer. I did not have a Charlie Trippy card, but I'm just more fascinated. I'm thinking this blue check. I bet this kid probably played with these cards, and this was his way of identifying this is my card.
Right.
The blue check. In 1955, you don't care. It's the blue check cards are my cards, and it's those things that make me interested. Just as far as different stories. Um, you know, I'll throw another one out here, and some of them are sad. Some of them are sad stories. Uh, Willie Gallimore. This is 1964 Willie Gallimore off of the Philadelphia series, and Gallimore was a star running back for um, the Bears from the 50s to early 60s. He was the starter for their 63 NFL champions. The thing with this card is he died in a car accident the summer this season came out, while he was at football, was at camp, fall camp. And so these cards had already been produced and released. And so this card came out and he had been dead for several months. And it's there's some things like that. It's not being morbid. It's just a sad thing because he
But
was a
it's in
powerful.
memoriam of him and what he accomplished on the
But see, it
field,
wasn't in
person
memoriam.
off the field, and
You can consider it that. I do, but it was a full. It was not a memoriam. It's not like Ken Hunt, the Cubs. the Cubs tops did that for Ken Hunt when he passed away in the '60s in baseball. But no, this was produced full bore, ready for him to start the '64 season, and it was too late to take it back.
Right, with the production schedules back then, it wasn't
Yeah.
digital like today. So, right, they're lined up months in advance, and if he passed away prior to the release, the card's already sent for production.
Mm,
But well, so whenever you mentioned some of these players, I think of Gene Hickerson. Your article on
mm,
Gene Hickerson, I found to be truly moving. And then I saw the Hall of Fame induction
yes.
video, and that really touched
Yeah.
me. And
I'll
so
yeah,
I'm
let's
fascinated by this.
yeah, the story was Gene Hickerson, this came before the brain damage testing. That's so huge now. And Hickerson was a incredible lineman for the Browns from the '60s to early '70s, but he paid for it. He started developing mental issues, depression. He couldn't remember. He was at an autograph signing, and he had to tell one of his teammates, "I can't remember how to spell my name." And he had a breakdown. They were flying to a Pro Bowl game, and he had a breakdown on the flight and got violent. And it took, I think, 8 or 10 people to hold him down because he was still a big man.
Right. Yeah, you're
And
an
at the
offensive guard.
yeah,
Yeah, you're large.
and then and when the Hall of Fame finally honored him, he was pretty deep into dementia.
Hmm.
And his son said he has good days and bad days, but the NFL said we want to honor him. And so the son agreed if he's okay, if he's not violent or if he's okay. And it was meant to be an incredible honor. They brought him on stage in a wheelchair, and behind him are the three Hall of Fame running backs he blocked for. Those were Jim Brown. Um, I'm just going totally blank on the other
Leroy
players.
Kelly.
Yes, and who else is there? Again, I should have kept my notes, but
Right,
he had
right. But all three of them.
and they announced that he was leading them one more time. And all three of the running backs agreed to do it. But he comes out, you can tell it's just so sad. You can tell he's not aware of what's going on. And I didn't really know anything about him until I saw that induction. It was just so sad to see that. And that's sadly my memory of him.
So did you have that card already in your collection, or did you go
Mhm.
out and purchase that card after seeing the
No,
induction?
I
I need
had
to
his
add this piece.
Yeah, that was one of the cards. I inherited cards from a cousin of mine who didn't collect them anymore. And I had a good friend of mine in high school who wanted to focus strictly on baseball. And so he gave me his football cards. And I had that from that mix. So I
Okay.
knew of him from the card. That was about it. Then I saw the video.
Right. So you were collecting cards as a kid back in the 70s.
Mhm.
You've done some trades, you've inherited some cards. Are you still active in the hobby today? You had mentioned
I
going to the card show and going, hey, I found this baseball card. I was happy with it. So are you still pretty active?
A lot more with eBay. There's not a lot of card shows in Nebraska. Omaha has one like every 6 months or so. Sioux City, Iowa had one last summer. I wasn't able to attend. So you don't see a lot of card shows. They'll every once in a great while they'll turn up, but um, it's but all what else? There's a fair amount of card shops in the Omaha, Lincoln, Fremont areas that I'll check into on occasion and get some nice deals. I do a lot off of eBay,
Hmm.
which I always figured it's kind of cheating, but it's out there. That's about as good as ways you can get them now.
Well, that or if you're like a set builder like I am, I love building out sets.
Mhm.
Sportlots.com has been pretty good for trying to find affordable commons.
Sure.
And then vintage, I think it's just called Vintage Football Cards on Facebook. A lot of folks are cool trading there as well. And I'll try to get
Nice.
you some of those links if you need them. But yeah, I'm
Okay.
a big set builder. I don't know if in your journey, if you're big into collecting sets or if you're more into collecting like certain like stars or your favorite team, the Packers, or
Yeah.
you know,
It's like I said, it depends on players that I enjoy, or especially if I hear, because I read a lot about sports, and so a lot of my cards come from interesting stories. Just stories about particular players. Here I've got a card. This is Ben Agajanian,
Huh. Is that a
and
55 or 54?
that's a 50. It's a 55 Bowman.
Okay.
And this was his only card. And he played in the All American Football Conference. He played in the NFL. He played in the AFL. He played till he was about 44, 45 years of age. And he's an interesting guy because um, he had his foot was crushed when he was in high school. And so he had, I think it was a size 10 regular shoe, then a size 6 kicking shoe because his toes were crushed and amputated.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like a um, just it's kind of like where basically it turned his foot into a perfect kicking tool. I wouldn't
Interesting.
recommend it for people, but then what's interesting with I've always thought was interesting. He was the first player to go from the AFL to the NFL. What happened was he had retired, and he had an awesome deal with the Giants. When he was playing with the Giants at this time, he owned several sporting goods stores, and he said, "I can't stay in New York when I've got my businesses going. I'm a kicker." So what he did was he would go back to California, where his stores were, and then on Friday he would fly into New York City, practice with the team on Saturday, play with them on Sunday, and then fly back to California. And he did that for years. And when he was in the AFL, he was a kicker for the Texans, and because they were lacking a kicker, he said, "I'll do it, sure." And so he kicks it. He had an injured back. He had a rough game, and um, he was told, "Nah, we're going to release you, but we're going to release you after the next game so we can line up another kicker." He's like, "Fine, whatever. My career's done." So that next game comes in. He sets an all-time AFL kicking record. He made something like 4 field goals, including a 56-yarder for the Texans, and Dallas loves him.
Right.
And now Hank Stram has to say about releasing you. We're not going to.
We're gonna keep you.
But what happened was Vince Lombardi was his offensive coach with the Giants, and Lombardi had a trouble with his
Packers,
kickers.
right?
Yeah, with the Packers now, and so he says you're going to be. He says if the AFL is going to release you, we'll pick you back up. So he's all set to go to Green Bay, and then suddenly Hank Stram's like, "No, we're not going to release you anymore." He says it's too late. I've already signed a deal with the Packers. So the Packers, I've never found the player, but the Packers released a lineman. And Lombardi said, "Don't touch this guy. We're putting him on waivers. Don't touch him," which is what the coaches did back then. And Ajanian set this all up. They released a lineman. The Texans picked up that lineman for their team, and then Ajanian went to the Packers.
A gentleman's agreement of sorts.
A
Whatever.
gentleman's agreement. It wasn't technically a trade, but it was a swap to get him on the team. It's just weird
And the
little stories like
storylines
that I've
of
always
that,
loved.
though, with Super Bowl one also gets tied in there too with Lombardi and Stram, and this is
Mhm.
fascinating, man.
Yeah, they were, and because I guess the deal was Stram was a big Lombardi fan, and so that he was, and so Stram was more than happy to release him until he had this incredible game. That's like, no, I'll be killed if I let you go because he had this insanely
Right.
wonderful game.
Yeah, and in the city of Dallas, you had the Cowboys at the time that didn't have a very good record, but the Texans were winning. And so, and
Yeah.
being from Dallas myself, obviously I wasn't around in those years, but reading about and learning the history of those two franchises, they were competing for dollars. And so you've got the
Mhm.
star and a kicker that's bringing in ticket sales, and now you got to cut them.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But that's like the different stories of different cards, and that's just an example there.
But also, when you showed that card and you mentioned the foot and the incident, that kind of reminds me of your card comments article on one Tom Dempsey,
Mhm.
who made his record with the Saints.
Mhm.
And so
And
it's
and
fascinating, man.
like I said, and then you hear something about the Cowboys. What was it? Was it Tex Schramm wanted to make his shoe illegal?
Oh
because
yeah, he's
you
always
saw
looking
Dempsey.
for his advantage.
Yeah, because he had, because he only had half a foot, so he had his shoe modified so it fit him. And Tex Schramm says, "Oh no, that's his advantage." And I'm thinking, there's no kicker in the rules going to say, "Hey, cut off half my foot so I can get a special shoe."
No, no, no. But uh, also you had showed previously a Hank Stram card on your card comments
Mhm.
articles. Is there one of Vince Lombardi?
The only Vince Lombardi cards that were released in his lifetime were by Philadelphia. And what Philadelphia did was for 2 years, they had what they called the play of the year. And it was a diagram of the play. And on the back side, you had the numbers of, you had the players all lined up by number. And the front was like a X's and O's diagram of how the play ran.
Huh.
And and in one corner, there'd be a picture of the stadium they played in, and the other corner would be a picture of the head coach of the team. And those are considered to be the rookie cards for those coaches, if that was their first ever card. So Lombardi's uh, only cards during his coaching career were those plays of the years because he never
The
appeared
Philadelphia
on a
card you said, right?
yeah because he never appeared on a team card. He would not pose with the team.
Fascinating. Interesting, man. I'm like, wow, like the knowledge, Greg. You're opening like scales removed, eyes open. Interesting, man. What other, you know, what other kind of like cards are you into?
Well, I've got you. You may mention about I this these are cards I love. These are the 1962 Kellogg's no post. Excuse me, get my cereals mixed up. Post cereal football cards. And in 1962, see, Post had baseball cards in 1960, 61, and 62. So they decided for the fall of 63 they were going to go into football cards as well, and they went all out. Sadly, they only did the NFL. Would have been wonderful if they had done AFL, NFL, but they only did
Well, the
NFL.
license though probably was with one league, and it's probably exclusive to that one league.
That could likely be they only wanted to spend on one, but um, and these are all on the back of cereal boxes. They're on the back of um, you know, in some of these the value depends on the cereal you're on. Because some of these are fairly inexpensive, and these are all like here I've got here. It's Forrest Gregg.
Hmm.
He's with the Packers, and the great details with the background and the pictures are nice. One of my favorites, Chuck Bednarik. This is his last card, actually,
Wow.
and you can see was it um, the old Philadelphia Stadium in the background. Uh, Now this one, Jim Brown. I actually got this one. This is worth about $70. I know I talk about money shouldn't matter, but I got it relatively cheap because you can see some little kid in 1962 got a bit aggressive with his scissors,
Right. And the
and
story
so
with
he cut the
that.
corner. And and the evaluators, the folks that you spend 25 bucks a piece to grade your cards, they hate these cards.
Yeah, because they'll say it's miscut, it's not
Yeah,
perfect, but
they
that's
just
the
hate
story
evaluating them.
behind the card.
Yeah, and Art Donovan. Uh, if you're older like I am, you remember when he was on the David Letterman show?
Oh, your article about him, and then I looked up the videos. He's
Oh,
hilarious.
he was, and he was a guy. He would just show up with a 6 pack of Schlitz and with crackers and cheese, and just sit and just talk. And he was just hilarious. And his autobiography, is one of the best books I've ever read about football.
I'll have to
And
get that from you because I'd like to read more about him. That the story about him and the pool party in the hotel room, that
yep,
was a classic, man. Him and five other big linemen and the
yep.
the water going everywhere at the hotel, costing them big
Oh, geez, I know. And then here's Fran, or as they called him, Francis Tarkington, very
money.
early in
No,
his career.
Francis, how about that? And
Francis Tarkington. But the thing was, Post had they produced 200 of these, way more than Topps or Philadelphia ever made. And so there's a lot of these postcards. The players, this is the only card they ever appeared on because with Topps, they only made like 8 or 10 cards per team,
mm-hmm.
if that much. Philadelphia is the same way. And so they were, so with the postcards, you had a lot of players. It was either the rookie card. And what's sad is a lot of these cards, these are not considered cards by collectors, the high money folks, because the circulation wasn't like a Topps or a Philadelphia. You had to buy cereal, and there's I may mention there's some cards that are worth hundreds of dollars because the cereal was so lousy nobody bought it. And as a result, nobody got the card. The most valuable postcard, I can't remember the guy's name right now, but um, he was a defensive back for the 49ers. And I have his Topps card, which is worth $2, $3. His postcard is worth easily three figures because what happened was he went to the Army. Post released the card the year he went into the Army, and they released it at the on the bottom of. Are you familiar with those little snack pack type cereals? Where it's got a little box of
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
frosted flakes.
Yeah. There'll be
Well,
like three of them in a row. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, Post did that with trying to get people to sample different cereals, and it bombed. It did not go over well. And those cards were underneath, were on the bottom panel,
Huh.
and so they didn't get distributed much. And then when this guy came out of the Army, he became a athletic director at a local college. He never went back to football. So whoever did have that card thought this guy's been out of football for 3 years and he's never coming back.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
See ya.
and now it's by far the most valuable card in the set.
So there are 200 cards in that complete run from that 1 year, or is that throughout the years with post?
That's in that 1 year.
200 different cards,
Yeah.
which is thinking about like just the print runs of with Tops and their set size of 400 or so, then that's going to give you, yeah, I mean that makes sense. Then that was almost the complete run as well.
Mhm.
Wow,
Because
that's interesting, man.
yeah, because go ahead.
I was going to ask you, I mean, do you kind of seek out these regional or these food releases? Is that the I guess non-mainstream aspect that interests you, or is it just the players?
It's mostly the players. I've just um, the postcards when I was collecting the baseball cards, I went after the post baseball cards, especially because when I would see dealers, no one was buying them. No one bought the post set. And so I got insanely good prices on the baseball cards. And 20, 30 years ago, I bought a Rosie Greer post football card for like $3 and never thought about looking further into the football cards. But here I am 20, 30 years later, and now they're all $20, $30 a piece, depending where you're going. So that's one of those stuff I should have thought about 30 years ago things.
Right. The journey is interesting as we reflect back on that and going, well, what if I had bought this or that but you're in the moment and you're just enjoying the hobby. And I'm sure
Yeah.
now, you know, you look at like I said, the eBay things, and you'd mentioned perhaps trading here and there, trying to go to some card shows. Are you interested at all in like the new releases, or is it just you're primarily like 70s and earlier? Or tell me about
I,
that part of your collection.
I guess I'm too old. I've tried to look into the newer sets, and the prices are so insane. I'll walk by and I'll see, $5 for a deck, a set of, or for a package of cards, and I'm thinking, God, that was a quarter with gum, you know. And so I think that's the geezer in me that's probably fighting that off. But it's just, and it just seems the newer cards just seem so forced. There's so many different ones, and they're artificially creating scarce cards,
Right,
which
with the numbered releases and the
yeah,
different
and that's
variants
just
and
and that just seems so phony to me as a collector that you're trying to create something, and um, it's just I think it's just unfortunate and sad. That's kind of where a lot of the um, collections have gone. Because I'd mentioned to you one other time about watching collectors on YouTube. I learned to stop doing that because they would just again they're looking for the money. They're looking for and one guy I remember watching this. I even posted this on my own Facebook page. He opened up a deck of cards. It was he got a card. I think a card set from like 1971 or
Mhm.
71 or 72, and he bought it. And he's going to open it up and showcase what was all in there. And he had He had a George Blanda. Had no clue who he was. No clue whatsoever who George Blanda
Kind of a
was.
famous kicker, quarterback, oldest ever.
1970 most valuable player, the ageless wonder. Um, by the time he retired, he looked like he was 90, but he was still out playing and kicking.
Right.
And they had to release him. He wouldn't quit. I mean, he was 48 years old and he was in camp, and uh, they had to tell him, "You're done. Hand us your keys." Because he
Was he
had
with the
never had a.
Oilers at that point?
No, he was with the Raiders still.
Raiders still.
Well,
Okay.
he went to the 1976 camp, and they had to tell him, dude, John Madden had to say, dude, your career is over. The leg is gone, and you're 48, 49 years old. But he was like, no, let me stay another week because that's all he'd ever known.
Right. And think about it. If he would have been on that 76 Raiders roster with another Super Bowl,
Yep.
another title, like that would have just
Oh, I know.
added more to his story.
Yeah.
Man, as we're kind of wrapping up here, Greg, and the time's flown, tell me about this jersey, this Earl
Oh,
Morrill jersey you're wearing. Like, why him?
well, I got my card here too. Got my Earl Morrill card and my jersey. And Earl, I love his story. He was coming out of Michigan, considered the greatest high school player in Michigan history in the 50s. And he went to Michigan State, led them to the Rose Bowl, led them to, I think, a national title or share of a national title. I know he led them to the Rose Bowl. And so he was considered to be a hotshot, can't miss pro prospect. He is signed by the 49ers, who already have Y.A. Tittle.
Hmm.
Why they drafted him when they had Y.A. Tittle, I have no clue, but he didn't play, played very little. So the 49ers think, well, he's a bust. They trade him to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the Steelers pick up, they picked up, at the time, the Steelers also had Lenny Dawson. They had this incredible collection of quarterbacks. And so he couldn't get it, couldn't be
Yeah,
seen that way.
he's the fifth wheel on that car.
Yeah.
That's
And so then he gets
definitely there.
traded. Then he gets traded to the Lions, and for the first time, he's a starter. But the Lions, weren't playing very well. They traded him to the Giants, and he winds up being playing behind Fran Tarkenton. And then they release him, and Don Shula picks him up for the $100 waiver fee. Then suddenly he leads him to the Super Bowl when Unitas is injured. And then he goes back to the bench. He comes off the bench, leads them to victory in Super Bowl V after Unitas got hurt. Goes back to the bench. The Colts release him. Don Shula, now with the Dolphins, picks him up again. And he leads them through most of the wins in the undefeated season of 72. And he's just this guy that, just when everybody thought he was done, he was there and ready to go. And
Resilient.
so that's why I've always loved his personal story and how he stuck it through. And you look at this card, and he's 42 years old. This was his last card, and I think Topps put this card out as thanks because he had not had a card in 2 years.
Hmm.
By this time he was the third string quarterback, and Shula just like he kept him for good luck, I think. And but Topps this last year gave him one more card.
But you already had Bob Greasy with the Dolphins at that point. He was clearly the
Mm,
helmsman. But
yep.
maybe Earl was there to kind of just mentor the backup at the time and like, hey, here's the process, and
Mhm.
this is what we do, share
Yep.
knowledge. This is how we're doing our offensive like film work and install and that kind of stuff.
And he was afterwards. He was a college quarterback coach for many years, so that set that
Nice.
up as well. Oh yeah. One last hint. You're talking about how we can tell a football card collector from a non-football card collector. I mentioned the guy that didn't know George Blanda.
Yes, sir.
He had a Pete Bethard card, and any collector knows that this is Pete Bethard. And his nephew was a quarterback, and his brother was a football executive. And this guy on this website picks up. It wasn't this card, but it was a different one. He goes like, Pete beat hard. And I had a post
And
where I
I'm sure
said,
you did this. Like, oh boy.
and I said, I made a post about it saying every football card collector should have a copy of Pete Beathard and just say, what's this guy's name? And if they say Beathard, they're a
You know,
collector.
you know you're in the know.
And if they say beat hard, run away. So
Teaching reading skills, card collecting skills, football history.
indeed, indeed.
Greg, you've got many hats over there.
I appreciate that.
Well, man, like I said, it's been a blast. We're kind of up against it now. If you're ever here in Dallas, please give me a shout.
Awesome.
I could probably just sit down and just talk cards with you until the sun comes up the next day. The missus might not like it, neither would mine. But man, I love just learning from you, and today's been a real joy. I've enjoyed this thoroughly.
Well, thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed it as well. And maybe we can sign off with Lamar McCann, the greatest card ever made that nobody cares about. I think this is a good way to end it. As a just look at that. That is such a beautiful card.
Definitely,
And
and that's from what is that the 58 tops
that's
card?
the 58 top series. And
And
this
he's
is
just
probably my
levitating.
alt.
It's magical.
I know you look at it and it's just he's a guy that never really amounted to much in the pros. He was signed by Vince Lombardi for his 58 Packers team, thinking that he was going to beat out Bart Starr. But then he got hurt a couple games in, Starr took over and never looked back.
And look at the team name on that card as well. That's
Yep.
awesome.
The Chicago Cardinals.
History, man. History.
Oh, I know it.
Well, Greg, definitely want to wish you a happy Sunday. I'll reach out once we're good, and definitely please come back and join us again in the future.
Would love it. Would love it. Thank you much, sir.
All right, take care. We're
You
out.
too.